And I'm here with Doug Dane today on the Turning Point Show. And we're talking about Bell Let's Talk today. Doug, what makes you such an authority on this topic?
Well, listen, I've been here in Canada. Bell Canada has done a tremendous job in fundraising and trying to bring awareness to mental health. And I really struggled with mental health for a better part of my life. It started very young for me. I suffered extreme traumatic childhood abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. That turned into drug and alcohol abuse and really struggled most of my adult life. And I just kept trying to get it right. I struggled with anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, into the relationships, into the therapy. I really struggled, but I wanted to figure out how I could live a better life. And I always felt that I could. And I think most people do. And then I did. And I was able to transform and let all of that go. And now I have a real understanding of this whole issue of anxiety, depression, and why people are struggling so much. And so I wanted to talk about that today as it relates to Bell Let's Talk Day.
Do you have one message that you would want to say to Bell Let's Talk? If you could speak to them directly?
If I was speaking to Bell directly about this, I would say a few things. One is thank you for everything that they've done and they're attempting to do. Throwing money at a problem is helpful, but it's not necessarily the answer. One of the chapters in my book is called Poison. I had a lot of poison dumped down my throat. I was fed things, I'm not talking food here. I was fed to believe certain things. I grew up in a very violent alcoholic family, and I was fed all kinds of things that I just took on and I believed. And I got conned into believing certain things about myself because of what I was experiencing, what I was seeing, and these rules and values and all this stuff that was jammed down my throat. And everybody, I believe, for the most part, 95% of the population is struggling with what I call this mistaken identity. And they just don't feel good about themselves. And so if I was talking to Bell, I would encourage them to take a different look at how you're approaching this. And we've been going down a certain mental health care path for over 50 years. And it's been that's the paradigm. That's the cultural paradigm around mental health, at least in North America. And it's pills and therapy, talk therapy. And again, it's not working. So I hope that everybody is willing to take a look at a different viewpoint on this because, as I said, clearly it's not working.
If you could just summarize this little segment in a little summary, what would you say?
Well, I think that just fueling the narrative around mental health awareness, I think we got to do less talking, actually. I think we've talked enough. I think there's enough awareness out there. I think everybody's pretty much aware we have a problem. I think the more you bring attention to the problem, I think the more people get drawn into the problem. I think that the way we're going about it, we're just covering up symptoms. We're not going after the root cause. Now, listen, I'm not saying that people don't need therapy and don't need pills, but I'm saying there's a mass percentage of the population that don't. And if they just understood why they feel the way they feel, why their thinking is creating their own anxiety, depression. Listen, anxiety is just simply fear of the future. Okay. Frustration is simply looking at the past and not meeting your expectations, and you're suffering with guilt, shame, or resentment. And if you're focusing on the past and you're worrying about the future, and that's what you're thinking about, you're going to get anxious, you're going to get fearful, you're going to get doubtful, and that's going to present itself in your physical state as anxiety. And if you don't talk about it, you suppress it, it turns into depression. And so what we've got to do is just educate people on this and give them an opportunity to take control of their life, take control of their story, and take control of their mental well-being. And one last thing, we got to get rid of this notion that there's something wrong with us. I ask people all the time, I go, do you ever ask yourself, what's wrong with me? And they go, yeah. I go, do you ever get an answer? And they go, no. I said, you don't get an answer because there's nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is what you're thinking about or what you're giving attention to. And you don't like the way you feel. And because we don't like the way we feel, we think there's something wrong. Maybe there's just something wrong with what we think, or maybe there's just something wrong with what we believe. And if you change that, your life will change.
Awesome, Doug. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom and since you're being an authoritative figure on this topic, I appreciate you taking your time to talk about this. I would encourage all listeners to share their own thoughts and experiences on mental health, and just Bell, let's talk if you have anything in the comments below. And thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Tyson. I appreciate it.
Awesome.